Hey everybody, this is my first time using the Vision Pro to do something that I have talked about and always wanted to do. Here's the news, here are my hands, and now I can literally show it to you and move it. So this might be a game changer. Let me know if you like it. Basically, what I want to start with is we are in a crazy time of AI. If you've been following the markets, AI this, AI that. Used to be large language models, big data, but with OpenAI, SAM, and all of the chat GPT functionality they built, it seems like you can't get enough AI. And they're getting funded hundreds of millions, billions, tens of billions of dollars. So as I like to do, if you follow me on Twitter or LinkedIn, I make memes. This one kind of hit a little bit of a soft spot. This guy at a restaurant, checking out his wine, doing all the mouth swishing, the looking at it, and giving the sommelier the handshake at the end, basically equating to how most people seem to be doing all these massive AI deals, the diligence that goes into all of them. And right now, it really comes down to three major investors, not VCs, but actual CVCs, corporate venture capitalists, Microsoft, Amazon, and NVIDIA, who are actually investing tens of billions of dollars into all these companies, into OpenAI, into Anthropic, into Cohere, and so many others. I think a lot of it really comes down to services like Azure, AWS, and using their chips, so more in kind than cash. But still, these are huge numbers, monumental, like the mountain up there, completely blanketing the entire AI industry. So this was just a fun one that I created. To kind of keep going forwards, there was an IPO called ARM, which is a massive chip company that, if you don't know, is owned by Masa, SoftBank, the Vision Fund that invested, 15, 16, 17 billion dollars in WeWork. They were the ones that valued at 47 billion and then ultimately ended up losing it all. But what people mostly don't know is that they tried to sell ARM. I think they bought it for $35 billion. They tried to sell it to NVIDIA like 2 years ago. Was it 2019? And it fell apart. He sold his stock, which today would be worth, someone did the math, I don't know, 70, 80, 90 billion dollars. But they just IPO'd a few months ago, and Masa, SoftBank, owns 95% of the company. IPO'd around 50, went down to like 35, 40, and they just had their first earnings last week. As you can see, it popped 20% afterwards, hitting almost 100 in aftermarkets. With all the hype, the next day it went up to 120. The following day it went up to almost 150. Today, market CPI came in a little hot, maybe is cooling off. It's back down to 120, but still, that is almost $120 billion market cap, as you can see here. Masa plays the long game, and in this case, it significantly paid off. He has made back almost 2 or 3 WeWorks just in the last few months alone. And so this is really just a great example of the long game and somewhat diversifying your assets and going big. He spent tens of billions of dollars on this, thought that WeWork would possibly be the same. And this so far, when I think the lockup expires in March when he can sell, on paper, this is a massive win for him. So just kudos to his tenacity to always somehow predict, maybe not always in the best way, but in this, from a low of 46 to a high of 120, truly, truly impressive. And as I was saying before, all the money in VC, early stage, it's really hard, but later stage, the Sequoias, the Coalslas, the founder funds, all the CVCs, it's all going into this generative AI. If you're pitching me a pre-seed and seed, something AI related, my first question is, what tech are you using? And you're a rapper, right? Which is fine. You can still generate revenue, use it in a fundamentally new way, but it's not your tech. You're not an AI company. If you use .ai as your domain, that's cool, but unless you come from DeepMind, unless you come from like Google AI, unless you come from Facebook, NVIDIA, and you're actually a researcher PhD, you don't have true AI. But a lot of the companies now, and I think most steadily at the early stage, are going to kind of fall apart. It's really these massive deals. You can't raise less than 50 to 100 million unless you have true AI, and that will be the key differentiator moving forwards. And it's interesting because one of the first AI companies out there that was really cool was Grammarly. I have it installed on my Chrome browser. It always tells me I misspell things. I'm not the best speller, but also grammar in terms of if you're doing Oxford commas. And it was interesting because in 2001, literally at the peak, November of 2021, they raised 200 million at a 13 billion valuation, which is kind of crazy. That's only a few percent of the company. They were probably doing maybe a few million, 10 million in revenue, tens of millions. It doesn't even matter. They're $13 billion valuation. They're a 15-year-old company at this point, too. And so they raised this November 17th, 2021, and everyone used it. This was when there was like OpenAI, GPT-3. No one really cared. There were a few people who had access to the API, but there was no craze. We were in the heat of the market where everything was awesome. So this was just another company getting funded. AI, cool. We'll see what happens. But the background of it is really interesting because they raised from IVP and General Catalyst. So these are big names like top 10, tier 1 Midas list investors. They did 110 million in May 2017. So really early, they raised a lot of money for AI. And I'm assuming that was at, I don't know, $500 million valuation. Then they raised again at 90 at a 1 billion. So already it's a 2x. And they go from a billion to 13. So already they're up 13x on that last investment at a billion. So that 90 million is already worth $1.3 billion. This is how you start getting these weird numbers, impressive big numbers of I invest 90 million. Now it's worth over $1 billion on paper. Unfortunately, because that was 2021, they did some layoffs. So it's difficult. A lot of companies can now do all of this and better. So it's kind of death by 1,000 cuts. They were the first mover. So we'll see what happens. I don't pay for it, but it is what it is. And we're going to see a lot more of this, unfortunately, moving forwards in terms of consolidation and funding. Now, moving on, as I was mentioning before, there were the WeWorks of the world, but the fancy ones were called the Soho House. In New York City, my WeWork was on Little West 12th Street. There was a Soho House across the street from us, and I had friends go. I had lunch dinner there. It was beautiful. I hung out with all the celebrities. I mean, they were kind of off to the side, and I saw them. They don't know who I am, but they were doing $1 billion in revenue. Doesn't mean it's a good business. They're losing a lot of money. Membership is apparently a high churn. People like it. It's nice. It's swanky. But I was amazed that one, Soho House is a public company. They went public, I believe, right after COVID on the upswing. And unfortunately, it's been difficult to keep members and make a solid business fundamental offering for it. Lastly, kind of talking about business models as well. It's an annoyance, but my background is in media, communications, PR. So I've always had a soft spot for MSM, mainstream media. Definitely, as of late, taking big hits in terms of credibility. But I love journalism. I love the media. I want it to succeed. But years ago, someone created a paywall, thought it would be the future because it was a little bit of short-termism in terms of I need revenue now. Media doesn't have generally the best technology. Their writers have to produce a lot of content. You see the BuzzFeeds, they're putting out articles every minute. They're now down 99%. I think the last market cap was, I don't know, $28 million if you're interested. But this is a huge issue. I spend a lot of time on Twitter, on LinkedIn, and other media platforms. And so if I click a link, I get a paywall, it causes a lot of angst for me. I can't read the article. I move on. I search for something else. Someone else republished it. I don't pay for most of these different publications. So for me, I can't pay for 6, 7, 8 different publications. There were startups that tried to get around these paywalls, but unfortunately, we're seeing a lot of layoffs in terms of not just the credibility of all these media platforms, but just the business model. They serve generalized kind of ads. They can't really target because the cookies aren't really there to tell you, oh, Trace Cohen is going to your site. This is his demographic. Meta, on the other hand, as you saw in their last earnings, Zuck is crushing it. They laid off 22% of the company, and revenue still went up 26%. Their technology is almost second to none when it comes to targeting because they have Facebook, they have Instagram, they have their Reels, they have WhatsApp, they have Oculus. I'm doing this on the Vision Pro, which beats it 10 out of 10. This is an amazing, beautiful platform. So I'll never go back to the Meta as of now unless they somehow go back. But I've been reading news articles on this, and it's been phenomenal. But to kind of end out, just want to say I'm a fan of the media. It's really unfortunate to see all these layoffs and strikes and unionizing causing issues. I want to support them, so I will try and figure out ways to do that. But just wanted to let you know that this is a major issue, and it will affect coverage of companies as people create their own social media platforms, become their own influencers on their own kind of talk pieces and media platforms themselves. So hopefully you like this format. I can see my hands. I've always wanted to say, hey, look, here's the news. This is awesome. The lovely kind of background, some trees, some birds chirping. So appreciate it. If you like this, let me know. I'll do more of these, or I can go back and you can kind of stare at my face if that's what you're interested in.